what I'm going to show you is connections with very little tweaking in terms of any customization. So you're basically seeing the vanilla product. And so no work involved. I think it took the administrator about 2 hours to really get it all installed up and running, just because the hardware environment was a little different. But so it's very simple if you use it out of the box. Obviously, complexity starts as you start integrating into other things. But the important thing is that you have tools to do that. So as you come in, given the context of the communities that you would set, given that you may or may not want, your community may or may not be open. There's a higher probability it will not be open because you're going to probably talk to specific vendors, you're talking to specific customers, you're talking to maybe specific prospects as well. In the areas where you're not you want to do communication to unlimited, sort of open marketing type of prospects, those types of things most often will probably be done in these larger websites. Not always. I mean, there's definitely exceptions to that statement. But if you're looking to do something where you just want anybody and everybody, and you're trying to encourage as many people to come in as possible, then you ought to look at using these other sites because they obviously already have the audience, and you don't have to build anything. So so chances are, by the time that you build a community inside for your organization, you're going to have specific users that you want in that community. Maybe a large number of users, but they will be users that you have identified. So this would be what they would see, a typical sign-on screen and password type of thing. And then when they sign on, this will be each is sort of the front page of each person's when they sign on. And in this page, you're going to see all the different components that we've been talking about. You see the profiles, and we're going to dig into that a little bit. You see the different sub-communities. So these are the sub-communities that can be inside your larger community. There's this concept of activities, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as to how you can utilize this. And bookmarks, where people are saving bookmarks of pertinent topics. And then blogs, where people can start their own blogs about specific topics. And wikis, where they can start wikis on specific topics. So let's start with the profile. Now the way this is set up is basically set up so you have the profile is set up. Okay, so let me explain a little bit about this particular site. This is a site that was created for the purpose of conducting marketing surveys for drug companies and for really large medical supply companies that were trying to reach an audience of doctors, of physicians. And they were rarely successful, obviously, in getting them to participate in survey groups because, obviously, of the time and the time required to do that. So they were looking for a way to appeal to the doctors in terms of getting them to participate in these surveys. And what they came up with was basically, initially, was to have a way to communicate the surveys and the information about the surveys and then getting their responses. The initial requirement was to try and do something that could be done on the web, and that also they could get it on their mobile phones. But then as the idea progressed, it turns out that by creating a community of physicians of specific specialties, and if you make this site have valuable information, which you can easily do if you have experts participating of that particular topic participating, all of a sudden everybody wants to be part of that particular group. And the fact that they're doing marketing surveys on the side is basically a byproduct as far as the physician is concerned, and they're more than willing to pay the time price to be able to have access to the information. So what started off, it was a company that basically they were paying. This is a company in South America, and they were paying doctors, I believe it was about $300 to participate in a survey, which was sort of that was the amount they were going to do when they started. And by the time they were done, they're no longer paying those stipends any longer. They're just basically they had more doctors than they could keep up with. And again, they sort of conduct the surveys as just as a sidelight. So each doctor here has his profile, and then it has, you know, sort of what their specialty is, and then some contact information if they chose to display, which doesn't have to be displayed. Again, all of this is completely tailorable. And the other thing to fundamentally understand is sort of the way Connections works is you have this, it's a tiered effect where you have the large community that you're creating, which we'll call the I don't know, we'll call it the big community. And then within that community you can have smaller specialty groups that are sort of these sub-communities, and then you have the individual themselves. And those three tiers basically all have the same capability. So you essentially have a profile for an individual, you'll have sort of the definition or the profile of a community, and then you'll have blogs associated with an individual, you'll have all of the elements, wikis, calendars, all of that connected with an individual, as well as with a community, as well as with the larger community. So let me go through some of the details here. So as I mentioned, there's the contact information that has been, they've allowed them to display. And then it also will put, you know, it displays the time of where that person is. And then we have contact information. Again, this is the contact information that I'm seeing as my contact information. So obviously I can see, Dr. Molina can see his own contact information. And you can determine what a community can see, and you can determine what the big community can see as well. Then you have an About Me section for the profile. Okay.
So it sounds like there's a lot of information, and you can't, you know, show and display certain information to the public or to the community, and some you don't. So a lot of customization.
There is customization, yes, definitely. There's definitely customization involved. Okay, then we have this About Me, and what we did here was we actually, you know, we actually entered the data to begin with based on information that they pointed us to their websites or whatever. And we entered information about it, and then they, in turn, added to that because, you know, again, it was getting their time is a challenge. But they were happy to add things that we forgot or things that they were doing new and all types of things. So, but it was good to get them started. In another case, you might just have About Me and just let people enter everything about themselves.
And Margarita, is that level of customization, is that at the company level or is that at the personal level? So could I decide that, you know, in my own profile, I don't want to show my contact information for whatever reason, but I only want to show About Me, or is that something that the company decides?
That is something at the big community level. So you're going to decide what you're going to display. If that's something that out of the box, right? If you wanted to do it, if you wanted to allow the user to tailor that, that would be something you could do as well. But more just out of the box, it would be at the company level.
Got it. Thanks.
Okay, then we have, as I mentioned, About Me. Then this next item, the board, is really kind of the Twitter of our community. So this is where the different doctors could put in information about what they're doing on a particular day. You know, I'm sitting out in the, I'm sitting out on the porch drinking a cup of coffee type input. Or more importantly, I'm operating on a heart that you wouldn't believe what I'm looking at or something. And just keep in mind that all of this can be entered with, you know, with a mobile device, which is one of the most. And actually, in this case, they also asked us. We also had to provide the capability for it to be entered, so that some of the doctors, the older doctors, would only use telephones. So we had to also give them a capability to call in an administrator and enter some of this data via telephone. So
interesting.
You can make it across the board. You can hit all generations.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you have here sort of like, this is what I've been doing. This is what Dr. Molina has been doing. You know, what communities is he participating in? He's participating in this vaccination for RNA virus, whatever that means. He's participating in that community, and he's participating in this cancer. The cancer vaccine community. These are bookmarks that he has created and these are the blogs that he may have participated in, or he may have created. And these are the activities, if he had any, which he doesn't, that he would have. So this activity is basically, in the context of a community, what it means is this. When you as a community are trying to accomplish something, so if we're in the context of this particular example, this community, what I as a company care about is the activities associated with them doing the surveys. So that is the reason that these people use, this particular company uses activities. So when a doctor is engaged in a survey, a sort of a standard set of activities are loaded up for him, and basically the due dates when they have to be completed. And there's essentially they're really to-dos associated with that specific survey. And there's reminders that are issued as a result of those dates, and when they can actually, from these activities, they can go in and, like, they may have, typically what it is a survey. They've had to do some review of research material. They most often will have had a kickoff webinar where they discussed with all the people involved, what was going to be done. That's usually an hour long. Then they have a week to actually complete the different questions on the survey, which are essentially different activities. And then after that, they may opt to have a sort of at the end of what was discovered. But keep in mind that they're able to look at what everybody else is inputting as far as the survey is concerned. So that's also something that they find valuable. So if they find a drug to be really bad, but they're finding that in another circumstance a person's had better success, it's all very useful from the standpoint of the drug company as well as the people participating in the community. And then lastly, they obviously have an ability to exchange files, and they actually do use a lot of this. They have a lot of reference material that goes back and forth. And this avoids them emailing this stuff, and it also has it in a central place. Typically, these guys, now you could also, this would be also an area where if you were all working on a specific file, if you were working on a document, some kind of reference material or whatever that you were building with multiple people, this would be an area that you could use to manage that. So this is his profile, and the one last thing I wanted to mention was the tags. So these are things that, now Dr. Molina, his people are going to search profiles for things. And so, we put the obvious profiles in there where he's a pediatrician, he's specifically cancer focused. But there are other things that he wanted to add, that he wanted his name to come up when things were searched. So, for example, he did a stint, I don't know what they call it, but they go and they spend like a year at UCLA Medical Center. And, he wanted, when people did UCLA research, that his name would come up. And so they actually have control of when their profile can come up. Now, again, you may choose to let people do this, you may choose to not. But whenever you choose to close something off, you want to think about it very carefully, because, again, you want this to benefit everybody. And you want everybody to, and you want to create this environment of openness. And then on this right side, this network is basically the LinkedIn version of this particular community. So you can now start connecting with different people in the community and your connections, and you can, they'll show up, and it does the same kind of thing where it says, hey, by the way, you're not connected to this guy, but he's connected to this guy, and so it does make recommendations to links. And then this is an area where he puts links that are pertinent to him. So most of them had links to their particular doctor's office. They had articles. They would put their links into that, things that were pertinent to them. So, if, UCLA research, he had a link associated with UCLA. So that's the profile in its entirety, the way we created it. The contents of this is tailorable. So there might be other things that you need to include in this, and again, that can be added to the profile. In some of these communities, the profile is really, really the crux of everything you're doing, and those are very, very huge profiles. Now, for him to edit, well, we've given him the capability of editing. I'm going to pop over here.